Jackie Shaw iBroad presents
Zoomterview.
an Administrators Unite production.
Okay, we're back with Tracy Flanagan, my best friend from Florida and an accounting professional who's been in the industry for a number of years. Can you tell us what you do to prepare to request a raise? Because it sounds like you've been able to do that effectively in the
That's
past.
the keys. Effectively, first, know what the company's financial situation is. Basically, if you're working for a company that you know can't afford to give you a raise, don't put them in a worse position by asking for one. If you do know that they're in good financial and you feel that you deserve a raise, obviously wait to see if they acknowledge you first. But if they don't just go in and say, I want a raise. Do your work, write down what you do, basically what you've done that's increased everything.
Like additions to your job description or your duties.
Right. Helping out, willingness to kind of go above and beyond, because that's kind of what I feel raises are for. When it's, I mean, there's the cost of living raises, which you shouldn't have to ask for, but if it's a value added raise, give them all of the reasons that you've added value to the company, you know, what you've taken on extra, what you're willing to do in the future, to take on more work or more responsibilities. And I mean, the worst that they can do is say no, you know, so it's not going to really hurt to ask. Because if you give them all of the reasons to say yes, they probably will, you know, because you're not asking for it all willy-nilly. You know, it's not something you do multiple times a year. It's something that you do, you know, every year and a half, something like that. So, or if you've taken on a lot more work. So,
yeah. So one of the things that's nice about QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online might have this somewhere, but I think they might be burying it. That'll be the next rate increase, file size. They'll be going after us for file size soon enough in QuickBooks Online. But what I did at my last day job, because I really wanted an assistant to help with the data entry, it was a lot to do. And I felt like there was more of it. So I went back and looked at like number of transactions from like 1 month to the next. I went back and actually started keeping data log. And so I could show these were the numbers of transactions like, you know, last year, and this is what we have this year. You can see that it's increased substantially to get a helper. But I think those are also, it's those quantitative things. That's what's going to get you a raise.
Yeah.
Like you can't go in and say, I don't have enough money for food. It might be true.
Yeah.
Most people, unfortunately, unless you're with a small company and you're saying, hey man, like you're not giving me a living wage. Most of the time that's not going to cut it. It has to be like you said, what kind of value are bringing to the company?
Right.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Did you get much mentoring, on the job training or ability to go to any courses, schooling, you know, conferences in your years that you've been working in the industry? What does it look like? You know, how much of an overlap did you have when you started a job, you know, cross training before you start, that kind of thing?
Some places have done really well. Telco that I was at for 12 years, they did really good with training me. And like I said, that one, there was only 2 of us in accounting. So there wasn't a whole lot of, we didn't have time to go to classes or anything because it was just the 2 of us. At the big company, because I hadn't had too much mentoring other than my mother. My mother's been in accounting for her whole entire life. So I would bounce things off of her a lot of times occasionally. But at the big company, there was one woman that I really did connect well with. We had the same kind of work ethic. And so I kind of forced her to be my mentor, and she was one of them. and she was going, she had her bachelor's degree in accounting and finance, but she was going to get her master's along with working there. And just because I liked her work ethic and I liked the way she explained things, I would always, if I would run into a problem or something I had a question on, it was always her that I went to. And instead of just saying, what should I do? She would explain to me why I was doing it. She wasn't just giving me an answer. She was teaching me how to find the answer for myself, where I could go and look, you know, and all of that, which was really nice, because I'm not a person that does well with just being trained how to do something. I need to know why I'm doing it, because then it sticks, you know. Everybody learns differently, but for me, I need to know why I'm doing a certain thing and what it leads to, and all of basically the things that it affects. I can't just be, okay, this is how you enter an invoice. I want to know why and where it's going and all of that. But that's just me. I'm just someone that learns like that. And Mary was really, really good about that. And she had lived in Alaska training sled dogs for a year. She'd quit Goldfield for a couple of years and went to Alaska because that's where her heart told her she should be. And so we had that because I used to train sled dogs. And so we just really, really connected. And she was really good at answering my questions. So she was actually a really, really good mentor. And she left about a month after I left there and went back to Alaska because she wasn't happy with the direction the company was going either. So
yeah. Well, it's wonderful that you found that person, right? And I love what you just said. That's the thing. Unfortunately, because if you come up in the profession with on-the-job training, or even if you take bookkeeping courses, you might not fully embrace and understand how your work impacts the financials.
Right, exactly.
And for you, you're like, no, the way my brain works, I need to understand like where this is going to hit and how this is going to all work out, especially when you get into inventory accounting, right? I mean, that's much more elaborate. That and job cost accounting are some of the more elaborate accounting situations, I'll call it, because I can't think of a better word. And so the understanding of how that impacts the financials, I think, is a vital component. And when you're pigeonholed and just like, this is AP and you're in nothing else.
On you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's,
some people don't want to know all of that. I mean, I don't think I'm the only person that learns like that, but you know, a lot of people just want to do the job. They don't mind putting the blinders on. This is what I have to do. And they don't want to learn anything else, where I'm a person where I'm like, teach me as much as you possibly can. At the boat dealership right now, yeah, I'm in accounting and I'm going to be taking over for the controller, but I want to know all about boats. So I'm constantly out there with the technicians. What's this? Because I see buying these parts, I see that part of it, but I want to know what this part is. I want to know what a jack plate is, that I keep spending all this money buying all these jack plates. I need to know what a jack plate. So I go out there and find out what a jack plate is, what it does. It lifts the motor up and down. So I have to know all aspects, and not everybody's like that. Not everybody wants to keep learning. Some people just want to do their job, get their check and leave, but I'm not like that. So
I've definitely met, especially some of the older bookkeepers I've worked with, I definitely have met some that just say straight out, like, I want to be a data entry clerk. I don't want the responsibility. I don't want to have to know all the stuff. I like clicking, and that I want to just click. And and so I had a similar situation when I started working with the remodelers. They were talking about punch lists. I'm like, what the heck? So luckily for me, you know, the Googles, because I'm never like on site with the people, so I can't like talk to them. And so I'm like, oh, that's a punch list. It's like the crap you have to do to get done with the thing. And they used to stick their pencils through and punch holes as they finished. Voila. But now we know what a jack plate is too. These are important things. just from what you've talked about, it seems like you've experienced both situations where one situation is they put you in the silo and you will not interact or talk to any other department. You will have no flippant idea what's going on with the company or anything. You're just doing this and they want blinders on you. And then the other situation where you're really becoming part of the team and understanding the industry and the product or service you're delivering. And you really have a much more of a depth of understanding. And in those situations, it also sounds like we accounting professionals, those are the places where we're going to gain more respect.
Right.
And appreciation and all the things, living with dignity, being treated with dignity.
Yeah. Some people don't ask a lot of questions. I'm a person that does ask a lot of questions. So once people get used to that and they know that I'm going to come and ask that question, whether you want to answer it or not, it's going to happen. So, but it does make you understand what you're doing and appreciate what you're doing more, I think. And it makes you more adaptable too, because if somebody tells you all of a sudden to do something different, you're like, oh, but this was supposed to be hitting here and here and here. Why would we do it this way now? So you should ask questions. You shouldn't just follow the rules. You shouldn't just follow the instructions, understand why you're doing things.
Yeah. Have you ever come across embezzlement?
I did take a seminar once.
Nice.
And it was supposed to be an accounts payable seminar that I had been sent to when I was at a heavy duty truck dealership. But the entire seminar for 2 days, basically they just taught you how to embezzle. That's because it was about catching embezzlement, but they decided that you needed to know how to do it yourself so that you could in other places. So no, luckily I have not. When I was at Telco, the place I was at for 12 years, we were thinking of putting the company up for sale, and Quest, which is now Verizon, was going to buy us. And so they sent in basically auditors, but it was a guy that used to work for the CIA. And he came to ask us questions because occasionally when you're in, Cape Verde, Africa, you have to pay off the politicians to be able to put up your phone antennas. And so they needed to know everything. And so they were basically made you feel like you were doing all of this illegal stuff, which we really weren't, but just the way they questioned everything, it made you feel super guilty, like you had somehow stolen money when you hadn't. But no, I have never come across embezzlement as far as I know.
Yeah. Sounds like who knows what was going on with that megacorp. They might have not been worried about soda because they were pilfering. You just brought up a really interesting point though, and that is being made to feel like you're doing something wrong. And I feel like that happens a lot to us. It happens because the business owner doesn't understand financials, or the manager doesn't understand. So they come to you and treat you like you've been doing something wrong. And I want everybody in the audience that watches this to know, I have also been through one of those audits, not with an ex-CIA person, but it was very uncomfortable. The company that ended up buying out the company that I was with brought somebody in, and I was feeling kind of angsty about the fact that they even are bringing someone in, and she wasn't very friendly or personable. And maybe that's how they're trained, is like, don't be their friend, right? But she would be like, where's the bill that goes with this? Like, ugh. And it just felt very aggro. I felt like my abilities and the accounting system were like being put under a microscope, and that I was like, they were going to be like, Jackie doesn't know what she's doing. You know what I mean? That's how it feels.
Yeah.
They put you in this.
Because we were a publicly traded company, you had to deal with all of the stock exchange stuff too. So everything really was under a microscope there. I mean, because we had quarterly audits and yearly audits there by 2 different companies.
Oh,
And so
wow.
everything was so particular. Like you had to have 5 different signature approvals on every single invoice, which again, as you know, that slows everything down. But and then they had people within the company that would go and pull stuff that you'd filed, like check back up to make sure that all of those signatures were on there. And you had to go through, because pretty much everybody in the company had a company credit card, and they had
Mm-hmm.
to go through and look at every single credit card receipt from every gas station they had gone to make sure, in case we were, because we were on the stock exchange, if we had a stock exchange audit, then everything had to be perfect. So it did make you
Mm-hmm.
very paranoid that you were missing something.
Right.
So
Like if I missed something, because we're usually very detail oriented. So the thought that we might have missed something freaks us out. Right. Yeah.
it keeps you up at night.
Yeah. And this to everyone, one last tip from Tracy Flanagan. When there's an audit, they're asking for every single receipt.
Yeah.
You can't just say, oh, this is the credit card statement. This is good enough. The IRS doesn't think that's good enough, and an auditor will not think that's good enough. So we have to have documentation.
Yeah.
It's a must. And it's got to be filed in a way that you can retrieve it.
Exactly. Yeah. And make sure it's got all of the approvals on it. You can't basically half-ass something. You have to, make sure everything is there.
Yeah. Well, Tracy, it has been such a pleasure. And I'm sure our community is very grateful for getting to hear some of your stories about being an accounting professional.
This has been a Get Organized Entertainment production. If you'd like to see more videos, go to administratorsunite.com.